Welcome back to the QB Lab podcast, a show dedicated to the greatest position in all of sports. We got tons to cover today. We're talking fantasy football. We're looking at general 12-team leagues, standard, across the board. And we're going to be talking about who you should take, who you should stay away from, who's worth it, who's a good value player. Tons to talk about, from Josh Allen down to Patrick Mahomes, Jackson Dart, Matt Stafford. We're going to cover it all. Smash that subscribe button, hit that like button. Don't miss that. Before I give you all these deets, you better smash that subscribe button. Josh Allen, his ADP right now is 19.6. So it's high. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. It's super high. Anyone who's listened to this show knows I'm a massive Buffalo Bills and, of course, Josh Allen fan. I love Josh Allen. I always want him on my fantasy football team. And shockingly or not shockingly, I would absolutely be taking him in that position.
Let's remind everybody what our ranking system is. Our tiers are 1, worth reaching for. So you draft them ahead of the ADP. Next, drafting, happy about it. If you get them there, you're good, golden, great. Next, drafting, not happy about it. You're doing it, you're kind of begrudging, you're kind of not super thrilled about your season. Then you've got drafting as a backup. Then you've got not drafting. And then the most controversial one, you're dumb for drafting. Those are the categories we're working with. For you, where is Josh Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm reaching for a guy like Josh Allen. And honestly, I think a lot of people will think that's crazy because, he's so highly touted. He's so high up already. How could you possibly reach for him? But honestly, the reason I would reach for him is there is room to grow. Like, he didn't throw nearly as much last year. His passing stats were actually a step backwards in terms of for fantasy. Obviously, as a quarterback, he had a great season. But in terms of fantasy, there was a step backwards there. So for me, I'm reaching for that guy because I actually think he finally has his number one receiver in DJ Moore. And therefore, that's going to elevate him back to sort of the type of stats that we were seeing when he had Stephon Diggs. So I'm definitely reaching for Josh.
So I could talk about this one all day. This definitively for me, for Josh Allen, I would pick him as high as 9th, which means I'm willing to reach for Josh Allen, and I have a lot of reasons why. The first is he's the only quarterback on the board whatsoever who has the potential of breaking the unit economics of fantasy football in a 12-team league. Here's another one for you. If James Cook was the rushing leader of last season, why do you think he's not going in the top 5 in anybody's draft right now? It's because everybody and their mother knows that he's bound for some touchdown regression. And who's the beneficiary of that touchdown regression? The Buffalo offense is going to score, and that beneficiary is Josh Allen. Joe Brady just became the head coach. Everybody knows Joe Brady was calling the throwing plays, where a different coach was calling the rushing plays. This is a situation we're seeing in preseason that Joe Brady wants to run play action. They want to fake with James Cook and let Josh Allen rip it down the field to the new receiver that they already have that Carolina history between coach and receiver in DJ Moore. What we can see out of Josh Allen this season is a situation where the Buffalo defense has to figure itself out. It may be a bit of a problem for the first little bit of the season, and then they're going to rely on Josh Allen to chuck the ball downfield to keep Buffalo in games. Josh Allen is going to be the clear quarterback 1 this season, and I'd rather take him than some of these second-tier running backs or wide receivers at the tail end of the first and early part of the second round. He goes confidently in the worth reaching for category this season.
Now there's the next guy who is, in my opinion, not worth reaching for. Honestly, I would argue that I would probably be not happy if I draft this guy, and that's Lamar Jackson. I don't like him. Coming off a lot of injuries last year, to your point, talking about they want to move away from the run game with Buffalo. I think that Baltimore's the opposite. I think they want to go heavier on the run, limit the exposure for Lamar Jackson, limit his chances of getting injured. I think they're going to play it very safe with him this year. New coaching staff don't like him at all this year. I think there's a big risk there. I think you have a great player, but he's going to be in a new system, a lot of changes, and I see a very high risk situation there for Lamar Jackson.
Jake, what's his ADP?
37.
So you're drafting at the beginning of the 4th round. I will raise you. I'm not happy about drafting him and say for Lamar Jackson, you are dumb for drafting him. Here's why. Lamar Jackson played 12 games last season. It's not a small number. That's not a small sample by any stretch. He averaged 17 fantasy points per game. You know, averaged 16.6? Kyler freaking Murray. So you're telling me that you're drafting someone that only did a little bit better than Kyler Murray last season. Now I get it. A couple seasons ago, he was automatic. But last season, it seemed like after he lost in catastrophic fashion to Josh Allen in week 1, where he put up a ton of fantasy points, after that, he fell right off a cliff. So if you're telling me at the beginning of the 4th round, are you going to get your RB2? Are you going to get your wide receiver 2? Or are you going to take a risk on a guy like Lamar Jackson when you've got other quarterbacks later down the list? I'm sorry, you're dumb for drafting him.
And perfect tie into Kyler Murray. I mean, his ADP is 111. So and I would argue that he's going into a significantly better situation. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe Kyler Murray is a guy worth reaching for. The thing for me about Kyler Murray that's interesting, and this is, I think, is what's playing into his ADP, is yes, he should be a lot better this year than last year. Yes, he's in a much better situation. He's got great receivers. Everything is kind of adding up for Kyler Murray to explode again, fantasy wise. But there's one issue with him, which is he the true starter? Are there going to be question marks if they have a slow start to the year? They lose a few games. Are people going to be chanting and screaming to get him out, bench him, throw in JJ McCarthy? I think that's the only risk you take with Kyler Murray is that, yes, he could be great if he's on the field, but there's a very, very decent chance that Kyler Murray could be on the bench early to midway through the season.
So for me, it's not close in terms of who's going to get that starting role between Kyler and JJ McCarthy. And JJ McCarthy, I haven't seen someone look this incompetent on a football field in a very long time. 9 is an actual joke. Now, here's the thing.
What?
Here's
If
the
they
thing.
play like garbage for the first 4 or 5 weeks, they could go to him. That's the problem.
Yeah. So this is why I think that the strategy has to be this with Kyler Murray. I think you draft him as a backup if you're not thrilled with who you got for QB1. I think it's one where it's a high potential QB2 for your roster. So I'm drafting him as a backup. I'm not putting all of my fantasy hopes and dreams on Kyler Murray because that would be absolutely ridiculous. But he's got absolute dogs at wide receiver. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got Jordan Addison. You've got decent playmaking on the run side. Kyler Murray's probably not been in this good of a situation since he had DeAndre Hopkins. And if you told me, Zach, hey, this is the best situation he's ever been in, it would be hard for me to disagree with you. If Kyler still has an ounce of the talent, he's going to be set up for a decent season, but you just can't put all of your eggs in the Kyler basket this season. I'm drafting him as a back.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And ultimately, and you talked about this, which is he's a good backup to take in a situation where you're not so content and thrilled about your QB1. So that if something happens with your QB1 and Kyler has a good season like you and I pretty much expect him to have, then you could easily switch him into the QB1 slot. Like he's going to be a borderline QB1. He
I agree.
probably is a borderline QB1 this year with that running and those receivers. You got to love him. Talking about a guy who I don't love. I mean, part of this is because I'm obviously not a Patriots fan, but Drake May. Look, 47 is his ADP. I don't think it's incredibly high. However, it's so tightly based on what he did last year. And honestly, what we saw from him in the playoffs has got to make you question what he is and who he is. And was last season a fluke? Was it the greatest year of his career? And I would say I'm about 90% sure that that's his best year of his career. And it's going to be downhill from here. Now, I don't think he's all of a sudden going to be a bad quarterback, but I certainly don't see him being like a steady QB1. I would be very concerned to take him if I draft that guy. I'm definitely not happy with it. It's tolerable, but I'm not going to be happy having Drake May as my top QB because he could easily fall off a cliff.
Yeah, I don't think I'm drafting Drake May, uh, like under any situation because I don't see his numbers as being fundamentally different from guys that are lower on the ADP list. And I would rather use that draft capital to shore up wide receiver or running back. Look, the thing about Drake May is he is getting a better wide receiver room. AJ Brown, huge upgrade. If he can stop reading books on the bench, I think he's one hit away from having enough CTE from taking off his jersey and padding in the middle of the game like Antonio Brown did to Tom Brady a couple seasons ago. I love Romeo Dobbs. I think he's a solid addition there. I actually think this wide receiver room has improved greatly, but I hate what I saw in the Super Bowl. I saw a guy that Seattle fully figured out. Drake May didn't go past one or two reads, and I think that's something that defenses are going to study during the offseason. This is a guy whose game I actually think has a lot of room to grow. I think he was scary accurate last season, and that has room for negative regression. But the idea here is I just don't think his numbers are going to be that different from other guys we got lower down the list. So I just don't think I'm drafting him, period.
Funny you talk about that. You think the receiving core is better. To be honest, I don't think New England's receiving core has improved much. I would maybe argue that it's the reverse. I
I think the
actually
only
think
stat I think
the
the only
connect.
stat that last year's New England wide receiving core will prove to be better in is the number of successful pregnancies that happened during the course of the season. I think that's the only stat where they stand a chance.
Honestly, like, hot maybe people will consider this a hot take, but I don't think AJ Brown is necessarily a better fit with Drake May than Stephon Diggs was. That connection that him and Diggs had, the fact that Diggs is basically like 11, that guy is always open, okay? I don't think AJ Brown is gonna be quite that dominant. I really think that Stephon Diggs had a special thing with Drake May, just like he did with Josh Allen back in the day. I don't think the receiving core, it's maybe slightly better because you bring in Dobbs, but like if you're just straight up saying, "Oh, AJ Brown is way better than Diggs, he's a much better suited player for Drake May," I don't necessarily agree. And that's part of the other reason why I don't think Drake May's gonna have a miracle season again.
So here's
They
my
took
argument.
his top receiver.
So here's my argument. Stephon Diggs going into last season, everybody thought was going to be banged up because of the injury from when he was on the Texans, and they
He was
just
perfectly
assumed
fine.
that he was done. He was
Yeah.
perfectly fine, but he was mastering separation in the middle part of the field. The reason why I think AJ Brown is a better fit is because in those post routes, he'll be way more consistent than Butte, who is a bit more of a boom bust option for Drake May, where when it worked, it's like one of the best connections in the NFL, but you don't have these intermediate routes to complete the rest of his game. AJ Brown last season, I don't love the tape from last season, but 2 seasons ago, that was a guy that's like a legit top five wide receiver in the NFL. So I think this argument really comes down to like which AJ Brown are you going to get? And I think I'm leaning more to like hoping it's 2 seasons ago AJ Brown and you just had it in for Jalen Hurts and there was things behind the scenes that we weren't aware of. But for this season, if he's in this environment, now, if obviously the Vrabel thing could also be a distraction here, which haven't even talked about. But if there's a healthy enough environment here, I'm hoping he hits the form more of like 2 seasons ago versus what we saw last season.
So talking about guys and what's going to happen from last season to this season, and to me, there are no bigger question marks than Joe Burrow. He's got a 48 ADP. I have a lot of concerns about Joe Burrow. the guy's body has taken a beating. I do think I would be, and I forget exactly what the tier was. It's like I'd be content with getting him as my QB1, but I certainly wouldn't be thrilled about it. There's really, you get very little in terms of rushing. And like, I know people will be crazy. Like, what do you mean? You don't like Joe Burrow? Like, he's got a great arm, blah, 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 blah. If anyone's listening to the show, they know that you and I are not big Joe Burrow fans, number one. And number two, fantasy, I like a quarterback that runs a little bit. And you don't get a whole lot out of Burrow. And especially with all the injuries he's had, like the guy's mobility is obviously going to continue to dwindle. And that just doesn't help when I'm trying to make an argument about a guy for fantasy. So I don't think someone's dumb to take him. I certainly wouldn't be happy, but I think I would be content because I think he's going to be steady. I don't think he's going to be great. I don't think he's going to be terrible. I think he'll probably fit somewhere in the realm of where he's at. I maybe would argue that you could probably wait a little longer than that. Like 48 does seem a little early to me to take a guy like Burrow with just all the question marks around him. But that's sort of where I'm at with Joe Burrow at this point.
Yeah, if I got to use the end of the fourth round pick on Joe Burrow, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not drafting him. He averaged 17 points in 7 games last season. This is a guy who's not showing me great health. And when he is playing, it's not like he's giving me elite level numbers. I'd rather use my fourth round pick elsewhere. I'm not going to criticize other people because any given season, Joe Burrow can return to near MVP form. There's a chance there. But I think I've got more people that I want that I'm more excited about in later rounds. I'd rather shore up other positions with that fourth round pick.
Here goes the big one. I'm excited about this one. I've been waiting all episode. Jaden Daniels. His ADP is 53.7. Stay away from Jaden Daniels. Don't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Disaster. Do not draft. Okay? I've been screaming from the rooftops for the last year and a bit, being like, this guy is not for real. He can't stay healthy. He is the next RG3. Mark my words, he is the next RG3. This guy cannot be trusted. He's a super talented, great work ethic kind of player, great leader, but he can't stay healthy. Don't draft him for fantasy football unless you're planning on having a very, very good QB2, because I'm telling you, Jaden Daniels is going to give you trouble this year in fantasy football.
So Jake, what's his ADP?
53.
So are we allowed to draft him in the 50s? I heard that because of all of the litigation, all of the lawsuits his mom is running, at the number 5 is banned for all intents purposes.
Yeah, with the
so he's going in
nonsense with the jersey.
Yeah, so he's going in the 50s and in the 5th round. Sounds like a lawsuit in the making. This is exactly the kind of quarterback that fantasy football trains you to want to love because he's mobile and because he's accurate. But I am not drafting him in the 5th round. This is just an injury risk. He's not broad enough. He will be flung around by defensive linemen the better part of the season, and he will not play the full season. I think people cling to the fact that he had the best rookie campaign probably ever, and he led the team to the NFC Conference Championship game. But this is more than one season worth of data. This is a body of work and a body that can't hold up to the pressure of defensive linemen. I think he's a problem. I'm not drafting him.
Jalen Hurts, the next one on the list here, he's got a 56 ADP. This is an interesting one. I mean, to your point about Jaden Daniels, we're taught to draft guys like Jalen Hurts. They run, they're pretty accurate, he gets a ton of touchdowns. All that sounds great. But to your point, he lost A.J. Brown. To me, his best years are behind him. Personally, I'm staying away from Jalen Hurts for honestly not that different of a reason than Jaden Daniels. I think he hit his peak. I think over time, the body with the hits, the constant running, different team, a lot of changes, not a Jalen Hurts believer at this point. I would definitely stay away from him. I wouldn't draft him at all. Doesn't really matter how late. I mean, maybe as your QB2, but obviously you're not going to get him as a QB2. But as a QB1, I'm staying way away from Jalen Hurts. I'm
Okay,
not
so
touching
he
that guy.
just wait for it, okay? Because Jalen Hurts averaged next to 20 points a game last season, and that was with AJ Brown being a giant distraction, basically doing nothing for him. So I'm drafting him, but I'm not happy about it. It's not an inspiring choice, but I don't need him to have a great passing performance. Keep in mind, this is fantasy football. This isn't how good of a quarterback Jalen Hurts is. In fantasy football, I don't need him to pass well. I just need them to stop giving it to Saquon at the goal line and let Jalen rush it in, because that is 6 fantasy points right there. And on the back of that, he's worth drafting. You're just not going to be thrilled about it.
And if they get rid of the tush push, is Jalen Hurts done in fantasy football? Is he completely useless?
He might be done for his career if they get rid of the tush push, because it's not like this is like a crazy accurate thrower either. This is a guy who has great leadership capabilities and he's pretty average at everything else, but his leg strength is what makes him elite.
So let me get this straight. We're saying that if the tush push were to be removed from the NFL and or banned, so if the tush push was banned from the NFL, Jalen Hurts is fighting to remain in the NFL. Is that what we're saying?
I think we're saying that, but also if the tush push stays in, I still stand by the fact that the Buffalo Bills should run the tush push every play, because I don't think any defense can stop them from getting 10 yards and 4 tush pushes.
So another guy who can run and do it all. He's now on the cover of Madden. Now, take that as a good thing, a bad thing. It depends who you talk to. Caleb Williams, ADP 68. Where are we feeling about Caleb? I feel like you're pretty high on him. I'm
Jake,
feeling pretty good about Caleb. I like him at that spot personally. I'm not reaching for him, but I would be very happy if he was my QB1 in that spot. I think this guy's is I think I think Caleb Williams is poised for a big, big season.
yeah. So, Jake, I think what I've established is I will take Josh Allen in the late first, early second. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. And if Caleb falls to me, I'm drafting and I'm happy about it. But even if I miss Caleb Williams, I still have guys later on that I'm thrilled about. But Caleb, there's so many good guys behind him. Caleb in the season last season, and keep in mind, it's not like Caleb had a great season last season. If you watch the tape, Ben Johnson was favoring the running backs a hell of a lot more than the quarterbacks. And then Caleb showed his true superstar potential down the stretch and in the playoffs. I think that then gives Ben Johnson the permission to give Caleb the ball in a way that could set him up for an MVP type of season. So I'm waiting. I'm potentially drafting, and I'm happy about it. I might reach a bit here, but for the purposes of the tier list, I'm not going to give him that top throne that I've got reserved for a couple other quarterbacks.
Talking about MVP candidates, I think we said that this guy could be an MVP candidate this year. Justin Herbert, ADP 68. Technically, it's 68.8, and Caleb Williams is 68.6. So they're pretty much in the same spot. And to your point, I'm not reaching for Herbert. Same thing as Caleb Williams. I'm happy if I get him at that spot. I think he's also going to be in that MVP conversation. I think we're going to see a good season out of Herbert. I think we're going to see a lot more throwing from him, a lot more big play um, football from him, a lot of running. I think we're going to see more of it. I think we've seen more of it as his career has gone on, and I like him. I like him in that spot. I mean, the more I'm talking about him, I'm amping him up. I'm starting to think maybe I would reach a little for Herbert.
And he just got engaged. I don't know if that's a point, but the idea here is with Justin Herbert, he is a full point per game lower than Caleb Williams was last season. But I do think with, Mike McDaniels now as the offensive coordinator, The offensive line potentially being healthy, that's a bit of a question mark for me that I don't feel great about. But given that this new coaching change, I think they're going to give Justin Herbert permission to open the ball up a bit more. Last season, because of how bad the O line was, I think he was like top 3, top 5 in scrambles. So he got forced to run quite a bit more. I think I'm drafting him, but I'm not thrilled about it. And I don't know why. The numbers are there, but there's something about Justin Herbert that just doesn't inspire confidence in me. But I would still draft it. I don't know why though. I like there's something about it that feels like a boring pick for me. I don't love his passing options. I don't love a lot of how this all kind of works out. But given that Mike McDaniels is joining the team, it would be stupid for me to ignore it outright.
Yeah, I mean, looking at what Mike McDaniels was able to do with Tua Tagovailoa, it's kinda hard not to think that he can do something that's gonna benefit Herbert. I agree the roster's not amazing around him, but we know Herbert is a great quarterback in terms of, as a pocket passer, and if he's given some good schemes, if he's given some good opportunities, I think we could see some really big numbers from him.
Like, the
The
thing is,
next guy
you're not really getting rushing touchdowns. That's the
no,
thing where it's like,
no.
I think he's a much better quarterback than he is a fantasy quarterback, which is why it's like, to me, it feels like if I'm drafting Justin Herbert there, what I'm saying is I'm trying to, it almost caps my ceiling out of what I want from my fantasy quarterback. And I think the ceiling is way higher, even with people that are further down the list.
Speaking of further down the list, there is a guy here who I feel like he's a lot worse than he is as a fantasy quarterback. I feel like
Who
he's
are
a
you
much
talking about?
better fantasy quarterback, Dak Prescott. I
Okay.
think he's a much better fantasy quarterback than he is as a quarterback. Now, I don't have his stats in front of me, but I feel like he gets a ton of like junk time stats. Like this guy puts up monster numbers in terms of passing yards and all this other fun stuff, but it's like it always equates to basically nothing for the team and nothing for the organization, which I don't give a damn about. Like at the end of the day, I'm drafting Dak Prescott because I think he's going to be good for fantasy. And ultimately, I think he's going to be good for fantasy. I like him at almost 75 ADP. I like Prescott. Again, not reaching for him. I'd be pretty happy at getting Prescott. If he was my QB1, I'd be pretty happy with that. The guy throws a ton. Doesn't he throw it like one of the most in the league? I'm pretty
Yeah, but
sure he
that's also
does.
because the defense at the beginning
What?
of like
I don't care.
no,
Let
no,
the
no, but
defense
here's the
be
thing.
garbage.
But here's the thing. In the first half of last season, the defense was trash. And then in the back half of the season last year, the defense was actually pretty good. And it got a heck of a lot better in the offseason. I do love the Downs pick that they were able to do. That was masterful work in the NFL draft. I think that that's going to lead to them not relying on Dak to the same extent that they did last season. Now, last season, Dak was like what, QB5 in total points. That's what I'm seeing here. So this is a guy that had elite
To
passing
me,
options with CeeDee Lamb and with George Pickens, who, in my opinion, is like impossible for defenses to stop for the whole game. So, like, I'm drafting him. I'm probably happy about it, but I've got other guys I'm willing to reach for too. So, I think we're relatively aligned in terms of where he ends up. I don't think he's elite by any stretch, but for fantasy purposes, I'd be happy about it.
yeah, like I don't think you need Dak Prescott to be elite. You just need him to throw the ball. Like at the end of the day, we don't need a lot from him. Throw the ball, get the yardage, get some of those touchdowns. You got great receivers. I like Dak Prescott,
Yeah.
especially at that point in the draft.
He doesn't even need to throw it well. Did you see how much separation Pickens was getting last
Yeah.
season? The
Doesn't
guy's
have
a
to be
horse.
elite. No.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence. This is an interesting one because this guy, I can't figure out who he is. Is he good? Is he not good? Should he buzz his hair again? Should he let it flow? Trevor Lawrence, here's the story with him. I think you're either getting like a top 5 fantasy QB or you're getting like a QB low QB2 and he has a disastrous season. So to me, I'm drafting him, but I'm not liking it. And the reason I say that is his ADP, his ADP is 85. Okay. That's pretty good value. So it's hard not to want to take him at that spot. But I'm not happy about it because there's a pretty decent chance, like I would argue probably about a 50% chance that he's shit. So to me, Trevor Lawrence is the exact example of what's either going to make your fantasy league or destroy your fantasy league. Like either you're getting this guy at a great deal and he ends up being great, or he's absolute trash and he destroys your team and fucks everything up. That's how I see Trevor Lawrence.
Okay. Jake, this is the second quarterback on my list that I am going to say I am reaching for Trevor Lawrence, and I will explain why. 2 seasons ago, Baker Mayfield had a top 5 fantasy season. And last season, he plummeted to like what I want to say, like in the top 12, like well outside the top 15, right? Do you want to know what changed between those 2 seasons? The answer to that riddle, Jake, is Liam Cohen.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Liam Cohen leaves Tampa Bay, and the next season he goes to Jacksonville Jaguars, and Trevor Lawrence magically becomes a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Do you think all of these different data points are just coincidences, or does Liam Cohen create such great play calling and such a great system that it allows quarterbacks that shouldn't be thriving to thrive? And on top of that, this Jacksonville offense is built to be a machine. I like Bashal Tutin moving into the RB1 role. I think Parker Washington is the real deal. I think Jacoby Myers added a lot of pass blocking and a lot of stability to these options at offense. And then Brian Thomas Jr. had a terrible season last season, but you can't deny the underlying athleticism. Travis Hunter can add to the athleticism as well. What I'm saying is this roster is deep. The play calling is unreal. And there's a reason Trevor Lawrence ended up as a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And part of it is because he trusted his legs more and added a ton of rushing touchdowns down the stretch. He got more comfortable as the season went on. He won a bunch of games. He trusted the coaching, and he is set up to be worth reaching for this fantasy season.
I mean, look, I hope for your sake, if you end up drafting him, that he's what you hope. And look, and this is what I said with him. It's like he could be great. He could be. The problem is, are you going to risk taking him higher than his ADP with the massive risk that he might be bad? Like
if
this
these other guys are off the board, I don't think you have a choice to save your draft. Think about it. If Dak Prescott's off the board, I guess the only guy further down the list that may be able to come in here is if you believe in Matthew Stafford's ancient back. But if you're relying on a QB1, there aren't that many more options down the list past this, and you may have to take him above ADP to get there.
You don't think Patrick Mahomes, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, Jared Goff, you don't think those guys are reliable?
I would take them too, right? Like if this is a situation where I'm reaching for Trevor Lawrence, there's nothing stopping me from 1 or 2 rounds later shoring up a backup for them. But like, I'm not going to, at that point, with such few options down the draft board, chance it that someone else might, like after Trevor Lawrence, I think it signals to the whole draft, hey, get your QB1 house in order because there's very little left. And at that point, you could be left with just like Kyler Murray. And are you going to be satisfied with him being your QB1? Maybe. But I think that fantasy football, when you're drafting, it's all about mitigating risk here. And I think Trevor Lawrence is like the last fail-safe in the draft before risking that nobody worthwhile is left.
Potentially. I mean, look, the next guy on the list, massive risk. We'll try to move quicker for people who have been listening and hanging in there to hear some of the nitty-gritty stuff. Jackson Dart, okay, ADP is 85. This is a really tough one. I don't want to steer people the wrong way. I mean, ultimately, look, Jackson Dart's going to run the ball a ton. He's going to get you yards. He's probably going to get you some rushing touchdowns. As a reliable QB1, I don't like him. We've seen the bumps and bruises along the way for this guy, and I just think his situation is not gonna be great. I don't mind him, honestly, I view him as a QB2. I don't view Jackson Dart as a QB1. I don't think people should view him as a QB1. I think anyone who views him as that is kinda just on the hype train because he's cool and he had some big flashy moments last year, but as, like, a reliable, steady guy that you could believe in week out, Jackson Dart is not that guy.
Yeah, last year I was a Jackson Dart believer. I think I was in the very small minority of people, and quite frankly, it's a big reason why I credits to me ended up with so many fantasy points in all of my leagues because I knew what was coming with Jackson Dart. This season, I am worried that he might spend less time in a blue jersey than in a blue medical tent. And that's my concern. I'm probably not drafting him this high. Last year, when I did it, I drafted him like the last round of drafts. That was really phenomenal value for me. He's not giving me that value this year when his passing accuracy is as weak as it is.
Brock Purdy. ADP is 98. I mean, he's steady. Again, it's like this is a guy that I'm probably letting him slip and taking him if I have no choice. Like if there's nothing left, this is later in the draft now. We're getting pretty thin at QB at this point. You really don't have a lot of options left of guys who are probably going to start for the whole year and be decent. So that's where I'm at with Brock Purdy. I'm certainly not happy if I'm getting him, but it's better than nothing, I guess.
Jake, Brock Purdy in 8 games last season averaged 22.9 fantasy points per game. That's less than a 1 point difference between him and Josh Allen. So I'm happy drafting him as a backup as long as he's a quarterback in a Kyle Shanahan offense. I'm okay with drafting him. He's got Christian McCaffrey. He's got legit passing options. Give me some Brock Purdy. Like, I don't get what the Brock Purdy hate's all about. I think Mac Jones also did phenomenal as a backup last season, but Brock Purdy was a tier above. This is a legit NFL quarterback, and he's being, I think, a little bit disrespected by this ADP, if I'm just being honest about
Is this next guy a legit NFL quarterback, Patrick Mahomes?
it. I mean, he
90
is.
98.9. Patrick Mahomes, what am I gonna do with him? I mean, look, the guy is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play. Unfortunately, his best play is behind him. Like, there is not a doubt in my mind that Mahomes is still a great quarterback, but he is going to be a step behind of what he's been in the last while. And we've been seeing the sort of fall from grace for Mahomes. Now, the guy is a great winner. Would I love to have him on my team in crucial moments, big moments during the season, playoffs, etc.? Of course. But as a fantasy player, knowing the kind of injury he came from, knowing his limited mobility. If you've watched anything in the offseason, like there are a lot of clips of him and his knee does not look right. Like he does not look right. So even if he plays, and look, even Mahomes on one leg is still better than a lot of quarterbacks in this league. But as a fantasy quarterback who I need him to produce week in, week out, I don't like Mahomes. I mean, he's late in the draft, so I guess you could take him as a flyer, but as like your go-to QB1, I would be very concerned if he was my guy.
Yeah, I think I drafted him as a backup. The thing about him is that injury is a scary injury to come back from, although he is a miracle to science. So it does not surprise me that he's coming back as quickly as he is. But the thing that's kind of being talked about a bit more too is that Kenneth Walker just came in to be the guy that helps stabilize this offense here. So I think they're going to throw the ball a heck of a lot less. You don't bring in a guy of this caliber, former Super Bowl MVP. I think this is the best running back they've had since like the rookie season where Kareem Hunt went all the way off. Like not the Kareem Hunt of last season, but like this is a guy that like could put up a crazy number of fantasy points, and they don't need to rely on Mahomes until the playoffs, which is what Andy Reid would prefer. Because if they have playoff aspirations, they want to keep him as fresh as possible for when those big games happen down the stretch. So I imagine they want to game plan a little bit like that. But again, I'd be comfortable looking at him as a backup, but I'm not putting my whole fantasy season's hopes on that one man.
So are we worried about this next guy, old man Matt Stafford? What do we feel about him? He's at 100 in his ADP. The guy had an MVP season last year, and his ADP is 100. I mean, I know he's old, but he can play, and he has a really, really good team around him.
Yeah.
I honestly don't really understand why he's this. I don't get it. I actually think this might be the first person today that I'm going to talk about that I really want to reach for.
I would reach for Matt
really
Stafford.
like Stafford.
If Trevor Lawrence is off the board, I don't have QB1 figured out, and I need to have QB1 figured out. I'm probably reaching for Stafford, and then I'm reaching for a high end backup like a Purdy or something like that in case things don't work out. Matt Stafford is being straight up disrespected. Last season should have been way worse considering the chronic back situation. They got him that, I forget what the chamber's called, it's atrium or something like that. But this is a guy that has the best wide receiving core in the NFL. I'll stand on that. And the running game isn't taking that much away from him. And he's uniquely doing things from the pocket passer position and faking out defenses in ways that no other quarterback can touch. This is a special God given talent that the fantasy community needs to really check themselves for, because this is psychotic.
I don't know how he's fallen off this much. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. He's healthy now. He's good to go. Yeah, he's old, but like, so what? He can still play. The next guy is young, and I don't like him at all. Bo Nix, do not draft. Do not draft. Do not draft. I repeat, do not draft Bo Nix. Massive risk. Gonna take another step backwards. Don't trust this guy whatsoever. I guess you could live with him as a QB2, but like, if you think that he's going to be your QB1 and like carry your fantasy team to the playoffs, you got another thing coming.
Okay. I think Bo Nix, I'm not drafting him as a QB1. I would
Okay.
draft him as a backup, but I think he ends up in the top 12 in fantasy points per game.
Wow.
I think that them bringing in Jalen Waddle to be a true joker in this Sean Payton offense is a heck of a move. And if he's healthy, he has mobility. He will get rushing touchdown. Keep in mind, he was top 10 during his rookie season. Last season, it felt like the whole offense was a little bit harder to get going, but they're investing in it. And with Sean Payton at the helm and with a real Jalen Waddle talent here, Jalen Waddle is a huge upgrade at wide receiver one compared to Cortland Sutton. This is now there's much more firepower in this offense. I think Bo Nix could be higher, but I kind of agree with you. He's kind of a boring pick, and I don't think like him as my QB1 would inspire much confidence.
You know who I do like as a QB1? I like me this guy. I like me some Jared Goff,
Of course you
baby.
do.
114. I love it. I would take him as a QB1 easily. To me, this guy, yeah, but honestly, I would reach for him as my starter. I love Jared Goff.
Okay.
I'm a
I
big
don't hate that.
honestly, look, here's the thing. Yes, they obviously run the ball a ton, but at the end of the day, Goff throws the ball a lot, gets a lot of pass yards, a lot of touchdowns. If you look at the last 2 years, the guy's thrown 34 and 37 touchdowns. He doesn't run at all. I get it. But the passing stats and the consistency of the passing stats are enough to say, hey, this guy probably is in that 12 to 15 range. And maybe he's pushing top 10 potentially.
He's pushing top 10
pending.
last season.
So I like him. I think to me, he is the absolute last guy in terms of ADP that I would draft and be like, I have a legit QB1. He's the last guy. There's no one left here when I'm looking as like a legit QB1 that I can trust every single week. I know you might argue because we got a few other guys here. Like, I'll just name them
No,
off the
no.
top.
Like,
We'll
no, Jared
cover.
Goff. The thing that we need to say about Jared Goff, though, Jared Goff had the same average points per game last season as Caleb Williams. The concern with Jared Goff is that the O line is getting worse, but this is a guy that will be sneaky good and find his way into the top 10 somehow because of how much Dan Campbell wants to throw the ball and have a high powered offense.
And you can get him so late in the draft. Like, the
So cheap.
value is incredible. Got a few other guys here. We'll just sort of name off and we'll cover a bunch of them. I mean, obviously, you got Aaron Rodgers, you got rookie Fernando Mendoza, you got Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, who I don't like at all. You got Jordan Love, Malik Willis, Cam Ward, CJ Stroud, a guy who you love, Baker Mayfield. You got Daniel Jones, Tyler Shough. Like, there's still some meat left on the bone, but to my point is there is not a single guy that I just named that you can truly rely on game in, game out. And I think the biggest arguments that I could see someone maybe saying is maybe Daniel Jones, maybe Baker Mayfield is like those are guys that maybe you could start every week, but I'd be pretty questionable. Like the Daniel Jones one, honestly, I know he was incredible until he got hurt, but like that was a drop in the bucket. Like that was a miracle. Like it's never happening again. He's going to go back to his median, which is like a mediocre quarterback at best. Baker Mayfield, maybe you could argue because he's got the running upside. He's not bad, but again, not as a real true QB1. There is a guy there that I like that I just want to, I got to dive a little bit into, which is Tyler Shough because
He's the only, sorry, I just got to, he's the only guy in that list that's worth talking about. The rest of them all suck. Like they're not going to be relevant.
So,
Shough
wait a second,
is.
Super Bowl winning quarterback Sam Darnold, you don't like him?
No,
No, I agree.
no.
He sucks.
What are we,
He's
yeah, what are we talking
garbage.
about here?
Sam Darnold's trash, but
No, but Shough,
Shough,
like from the halfway point of last season to the end, he's easily in the top 10. He might even be in the top 5. And it's because of that connection.
It's 130.
Yeah,
Come
I would reach for I'd reach for Shough. I think that he's the best quarterback in the NFC South. I've even said I think the Saints are going to win the NFC South this season. This is a guy with because of his connection with Olave, they're the real deal, and you can't sleep on him.
And it's something for people, I think, to also think about. And we didn't talk a lot about this, but you should also try to get quarterbacks that not only you believe in and you think are going to have a good season, but guys that you think have really tasty matchups. Like at the end of the day, and you brought this up, like Tyler Shough is in a joke of a division. So he's going to have 6 very easy games in a very easy division. So you got to like a guy like Tyler Shough who has incredible upside, has a very, very easy schedule, and is kind of going to come out of nowhere. Like to me, Tyler Shough could easily be in the top 15. Like he could be pushing to that top 12. I don't know about top 10, but he's
Tyler Shough could be a top 5 quarterback. Could be because of the Kellen Moore offense and because like if they are winning their division, that means they're playing meaningful football the whole season. There are only a handful of quarterbacks that you can make that claim about, right? Like Tyler Shough in his second NFL season could take that second year leap with a great coaching staff around him, a great wide receiver core where they just invested a top 10 pick in a wide receiver for him. This is a situation where he's actually in a great, like he's in a position to succeed here. There aren't that many quarterbacks that you can say that about.
what are we getting? I got 2 more guys that I'm curious to get your thought about. One, Bryce Young. Like what is this guy? I mean, I know he looked better at the end of last season. He still statistically was nothing impressive. He's obviously undersized, etc., etc. Do you think there's any potential left with him, or is he basically a bust?
I kind of like Bryce Young in some ways. That my problem with Bryce Young is the same kind of problem I have with Baker Mayfield, where in when the playoffs were on the line, they both didn't show me any heart whatsoever. And the difficulty with Bryce Young statistically usually is consistency can be quite a problem. If I'm like a GM and I run the Carolina Panthers, it's not like I hate the guy. The difficulty is if I'm a fantasy football GM, which is a hilarious job, by the way, there are so many other options of people I would have in front of him. Like, I think there's just he's a victim of choice here, where it's like there's just other guys you have to believe in more.
The last player to wrap this up, because I'm curious I mean, I have a feeling I know what you're gonna say, but we gotta talk about this guy because we love talking about him. CJ Stroud. The guy has truly fallen out of the sky. It really is a shame. Like his rookie season, talk about great rookie seasons and kind of not out of nowhere, but I don't think anyone thought he would be as good as he was in his rookie season. What is the deal with this guy? Like, why is he unable to figure it out? He is on a team with one of who had one of the best defenses I've ever seen in my lifetime, and the guy did nothing with it. What is his issue? Why is he unable to move the ball? Is he just so in his head at this point? Has he totally lost all confidence?
Look, when the game was on the line, CJ Stroud couldn't hut the football. Free Mac Jones, free Marcus Mariota, hell, free Davis Mills from being his backup. There are so many backup quarterbacks that deserve a starting job, and CJ Stroud is laughing in their face and performing like an absolute joke.